Prescott Elementary in Chandler, Arizona was buzzing with excitement. It was Career Week, a cherished event where third graders sat crisscross on the reading rug while parents paraded in with stethoscopes, hard hats, laptops, and props from all kinds of jobs. Some kids beamed with pride, others shrank into themselves. But everyone looked forward to the break from spelling quizzes and math drills. 8-year-old Jaylen Carter, small for his age but sharp as a tack, could barely sit still. He had this wide-open way of speaking, like every word mattered, and today they all did. His dad was supposed to show up during the last session of the day. When Mr. Worthington, their teacher, asked the class to share what their parents did, Jaylen sat bolt upright, chest puffed. "My dad," he said, grinning, "works at NASA." A hush fell. Not the curious kind, the doubting kind. A kid snorted. Another muttered, "Yeah, right." But it was Mr. Worthington's response that hit hardest. Mr. Worthington, 40s, thinning hair, khakis and a polo, let out a low chuckle. Not a belly laugh. The condescending kind that makes you feel 2 feet tall. "NASA, huh?" he said, raising an eyebrow like Jaylen had claimed his dad built rockets in their backyard. "That's some imagination, Jaylen. Maybe next time aim for something more realistic." A few kids giggled. One girl whispered, "More realistic," like it was the punchline of a joke. Jaylen said nothing. His sneakers tapped together as he stared at the rug, his hands now fists on his knees. Mr. Worthington moved on, unaware or uncaring about the blow he'd just delivered. But someone noticed. Mila and Gwen, sitting on either side of Jaylen, leaned in. "I believe you," Gwen whispered. Jaylen only nodded, eyes fixed on the floor. The rest of the morning passed in a blur. Jaylen didn't eat his lunch, didn't laugh when the boys danced silly near the vending machine. He didn't swing on the monkey bars, because the damage wasn't in the doubt. It was in how easily a grown man, his teacher no less, had dismissed him. What Mr. Worthington didn't know? Jaylen wasn't making it up. His dad, Dr. Marcus Carter, was a NASA systems engineer. He'd spent the last year working on the Mars Relay project. Every day he wore his NASA badge with pride. Jaylen was proud too. Just 3 days before, Jaylen had sat in the garage while his dad sorted through old cables. "Wait," Jaylen had asked, Capri Sun in hand, "how long does it take for the rover to send messages back to Earth?" "Depends on Mars' orbit," Marcus replied. "Anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes. Jaylen's eyes widened. "So it's like texting someone with really bad service." Marcus laughed. "Exactly. Space has terrible Wi-Fi." Jaylen adored moments like that. No big speeches, just little slices of time where science became funny, real, and made sense, because someone took the time to explain it. The night before career day, Jaylen had asked if he could bring one of Marcus's NASA folders to school. Marcus shook his head. "Classified stuff, buddy. Not even a page." "Then how will they believe me?" "You don't need a folder. You have your voice. Tell them what I do. Tell them you're proud." "But what if they laugh?" Marcus sighed. "If they laugh, you hold your head high and remember, truth doesn't need applause. It just needs to be said." Jaylen nodded, not quite understanding, but trusting. That night, he drew a picture of his dad holding Earth in one hand and a satellite in the other. He wrote words like orbit, spacecraft, and Mars Relay in bouncy letters. He couldn't wait to show his class. But after Mr. Worthington's laugh, Jaylen tore the picture before recess and shoved it to the bottom of his cubby. Excitement crumbled into shame in under a second. That's all it took. Meanwhile, Marcus was finishing a presentation designed just for third graders. It had cartoon rockets and pictures of Mars. His favorite slide was the last one, him and Jaylen at NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab, both grinning, both wearing matching badges. But back in room 3B, Jaylen wasn't smiling, because sometimes all it takes is one comment from the wrong person to make a kid question everything. After lunch, Mr. Worthington moved back into his usual rhythm, vocabulary drills, math warm-ups, and a spelling bee. But something had shifted. His eyes flicked toward Jaylen more than once. Jaylen didn't meet his gaze. He didn't speak. He didn't raise his hand. It was as if something had dimmed in him, gone flat. Mila noticed. So did a few others. But nobody said anything. Perhaps they didn't know how. Career presentations were set for the last hour. By 1:30, desks were pushed aside. Whiteboard stands set up. Parents would be called in one by one from the hallway. Jaylen watched the clock more than the presentations. He was counting minutes now, but not in anticipation, in fear. What if his dad didn't show up? What if he got stuck at NASA? What if he forgot? Because if Marcus Carter didn't walk through that door, Jaylen feared that everything Mr. Worthington had said would feel right. The kids clapped and giggled as Chloe's mom passed out mini cupcakes and business cards from her bakery. Then came Thomas's uncle, a mechanic, spinning a tire gauge like a magician. Questions flew. Laughter rang. But Jaylen couldn't join in. Sweat dampened his palms. His knees bounced. Each second without his dad felt heavier. Mr. Worthington glanced toward the door, clipboard in hand. 4 parents left, 15 minutes to go. He looked down at the list. Next we have... The door creaked open. Heads turned. And there he was, Dr. Marcus Carter. Navy blazer, crisp white shirt, slacks, and that glinting NASA badge clipped just beneath his breast pocket. His hair, close cropped and peppered at the sides, framed a calm, knowing gaze that swept the room before landing squarely on his son. Jaylen sat upright with a jolt. His mouth parted, but no words came out. Marcus gave a simple nod. Not a grin, not a grand entrance, just steady presence. Hello, he said, his voice low but clear. I'm Dr. Carter. I design spacecraft. The room fell into stunned silence. Not awkward, not mocking, awestruck, except for one person. Mr. Worthington stood frozen at the front, clipboard limp in hand, mouth half open. Dr. Carter didn't need props, didn't need a slideshow. Just his voice, just the badge, just his truth. He smiled lightly and turned to the class. So, you're learning about jobs today? One student raised a hand. Do you fly rockets? Marcus chuckled. Not quite. I help build the systems that let rockets talk to us after they leave Earth. Think of it like making space phones. Another kid piped up. Like iPhones for Mars? He laughed. Exactly. But with worse reception. The class erupted in laughter. Even Jaylen cracked a smile. Marcus tapped a button on the screen and up came an image. The Mars Relay Project, a network of deep-orbit satellites. Then another, him standing in front of a sprawling control panel. What you're looking at, he explained, is how we stay connected to the robots we send to explore Mars. We make sure they can call home. The kids leaned forward, hungry eyes, eager hands raised, question after question. Mr. Worthington, now at the side of the room, didn't speak. His eyes moved from the images to Marcus to Jaylen. Jaylen, who now sat taller than he had all day. Dr. Carter never said a word about what had happened earlier. He didn't have to. His presence said enough. But before wrapping up, he paused, looked squarely at the class. I heard someone say earlier that working for NASA might not be realistic. He let the sentence hang. Then he turned slightly toward Jaylen. I guess some people have a different definition of realistic. And finally he smiled. Jaylen beamed. For the first time that day, his fists unclenched. He glanced around and saw it. Something had shifted. Gone were the giggles, the raised eyebrows. In their place, wide eyes, nods, even admiration. Even Milo from earlier whispered, "Told you." Mr. Worthington cleared his throat. Thank you, Dr. Carter. That was very informative. Marcus checked his watch. I have to get back. Mars doesn't like being kept waiting. The room chuckled. He stepped past Mr. Worthington, paused a beat. I hope your students always feel heard, he said softly, especially the ones who dream big. Then he walked out and left behind a silence heavier than applause. After Dr. Marcus Carter walked out of room 3B, the air in the classroom didn't quite settle. It was as if his presence had stirred something so deeply that no amount of routine could restore what used to be. The buzz of excitement that had animated Career Week was gone, replaced by a dense quiet, a mix of reflection, humility, and awe. Jaylen didn't move. He remained seated at his desk, his backpack unopened, his hands resting flat on the surface as if anchoring him to this new reality. He wasn't smiling outwardly, but there was a brightness to him now, something steady, strong, deeply rooted. Across the room, Mr. Worthington stood frozen near the whiteboard. The clipboard in his hand had lost its purpose. The lines he used to control the class, jokes, smiles, routines, no longer worked. He glanced over at Jaylen, then quickly looked away. The remaining presentations limped along. A civil engineer showed blueprints no one really looked at. A florist handed out petals that fluttered to the floor like confetti at the wrong party. No one laughed. No one clapped with the same enthusiasm. The climax had already happened, and everything else was just extra. When the final bell rang, backpacks rustled, chairs screeched against the floor, and the classroom filled with the usual end-of-day noise. But Jaylen didn't budge. He wasn't rushing anymore. He didn't need to flee the room to escape shame or doubt. He stayed. One by one, the students left. Mila gave him a quick fist bump before heading out. Gwen gave a silent wave. Even Milo, who had smirked the day before, looked at Jaylen with wide eyes before saying, "Your dad is awesome." Jaylen simply nodded. He didn't need to respond. When the room was nearly empty, Mr. Worthington finally walked over, his steps hesitant. His usual authority was gone. He no longer looked like a man in charge of anything. "Jaylen," he started, voice unusually soft. "Can I talk to you for a second?" Jaylen looked up. "Sure." The teacher shifted his weight, the clipboard now limp at his side. "Your father is remarkable." Jaylen said nothing. Mr. Worthington swallowed hard. "I owe you an apology. I didn't just question your words. I questioned you." And I laughed. That was wrong. Jaylen watched him closely. He didn't try to make it easier. He didn't nod to let him off the hook. He waited. "I've been thinking about it all afternoon," Mr. Worthington continued. "Sometimes we say things without realizing the weight they carry, especially with kids. And the truth is, I didn't believe you. Not because you weren't believable, but because I wasn't ready to believe someone like you had a father like that." Jaylen's eyebrows rose slightly. That admission meant something. "And that's on me," the teacher said, "not you." Jaylen finally replied, voice steady. "You didn't just laugh at what I said. You made everyone else think it was okay to laugh too." Mr. Worthington nodded slowly, the weight of those words crashing into his chest. "I know, and I hate that. I'm sorry." Jaylen stood, his backpack slung over one shoulder. He walked toward the door, then paused. "He's not just a NASA engineer, you know. He teaches me things. He makes science funny. He listens." The teacher blinked. "Sounds like he's a great dad." "He is." And with that, Jaylen walked out the door. That night, the Arizona sun sank low, painting the sky in swirls of gold, lavender, and rose. Jaylen sat at the kitchen counter, a bowl of frosted flakes in front of him, his spoon moving in slow, absent circles. Across from him, Dr. Carter leaned back in a wooden chair, sipping from his favorite mug, one that had a chipped corner and read "Space Nerd" in faded lettering. They hadn't talked much since the school visit. Neither needed to fill the silence. The air between them wasn't heavy, it was full. Eventually, Jaylen spoke. "He laughed," he said simply. Dr. Carter looked up. "Mr. Worthington?" Jaylen nodded. "When I said you worked at NASA, like it was impossible." Dr. Carter didn't answer right away. He set his mug down and crossed his arms on the table. "I heard." "Why do people do that?" Jaylen asked. "Why do they laugh when something sounds too big?" His father took a long breath. "Because people get used to small boxes. Small boxes make the world easier to understand. When something doesn't fit in their box, they either fear it or laugh at it." Jaylen tilted his head. "Like, to make it go away?" "Exactly," Marcus said. "It's not always hate. Sometimes it's ignorance. But either way, the problem's not you. It's the box." Jaylen stirred his cereal again. "I didn't feel smart anymore. Like maybe I made it up." "Then they did more than laugh," Marcus said, his voice quiet but firm. "They made you doubt your truth. That's the worst thing they can do." Jaylen looked up. "But you still told them," Marcus added, "even when they didn't believe. That takes guts, Jay." Jaylen smiled faintly. They believe me now. They asked me today if I could bring a space tool to class. Dr. Carter raised an eyebrow. A space tool? You mean one of the Mars antenna models? Jaylen grinned. You said that was top secret. It is, but maybe I can find one that's just boring enough to be allowed. They both laughed. The next morning at school, everything had changed. No one said so. No one announced it. But it was in the way the kids looked at him. Respect, curiosity, even admiration. They wanted to sit near him. They asked questions about space. They laughed at his Wi-Fi on Mars joke. And not a single one called him a liar. At lunch, Mila sat beside him on the grass under the tree near the jungle gym. They believe you now, she said. Jaylen chewed a carrot stick thoughtfully. They don't have to, Mila smiled. But it's still nice. He nodded. She leaned closer. He was wrong, you know, Mr. Worthington. But the way your dad walked in, he didn't even have to prove anything. He just existed. Jaylen looked down at his sandwich. He told me once, truth doesn't need applause. It just needs to be said. Mila tilted her head. Your dad should write books. Jaylen laughed. He kinda does, with computers. That afternoon, while putting his books into his cubby, Jaylen noticed a folded sheet of paper tucked in between two folders. He opened it slowly. It wasn't a typed letter, not school stationery. Just a simple piece of notebook paper with slightly shaky handwriting. Jaylen, I was wrong. You don't need to prove anything to us. Your words were enough. Keep dreaming big. Mr. Worthington Jaylen didn't smile, didn't cry, didn't read it twice. He folded it neatly, placed it in his backpack, and zipped it shut. He didn't need the apology, but maybe Mr. Worthington needed to say it. When the final bell rang, Jaylen walked out into the golden afternoon with his head high. Not because his classmates had changed, not because the teacher had said sorry, not even because the truth had been proven, but because he had spoken it, even when no one believed. And that was enough. His father had taught him that truth is not something you shout to be heard. It's something you carry, quietly, proudly. And sometimes, if you carry it long enough, it echoes. Somewhere behind him, room 3B would never be quite the same. A teacher had learned a lesson he didn't expect to teach, or to receive. One that had nothing to do with spelling tests or times tables. That children carry dreams that stretch far beyond what most adults are prepared to accept. That when we laugh at those dreams, we're not just mocking ambition, we're shrinking the voice behind it. But Jaylen's voice, it didn't shrink. It stayed clear, strong, true. Because the truth doesn't need permission. It just needs someone brave enough to say it. And if you've ever been doubted, dismissed, or told to be more realistic, remember this. Other people's limits are not your responsibility. Keep showing up, keep dreaming, and speak your truth. Even if they laugh. Because one day the truth might walk into the room wearing a NASA badge and change everything.